So. Hello and welcome back to another stream and another episode of the SDWT, or Self-Development with Tactics podcast. What we're going to talk about today is probably going to be design talk number 3, because I was thinking about design and I was thinking about philosophy and I was thinking about life as well. And maybe I have come to a few more conclusions, which is, by the way, pretty interesting, that it is fairly easy to see the connection of life and design. It's pretty obvious most often, which is something that I tremendously enjoy. But in the meantime, we are indeed, should we go through Pinterest things? I don't really know. I don't really know. Or should we just go through Instagram? Let's just pick Instagram. Instagram is most often a pretty great design hub. I'm actually also going to show you window capture. There we go. And for whatever reason, it is smaller than it should be. But I guess I'm going to keep it like this. It should be fine. So what we're having there, design milk. Maybe we're also going to talk about architectural things. Maybe even product design, something that, when it comes to product design, I don't know, like product design and clothing. These are two things that I am pretty bad at judging and understanding, whether something works or doesn't work for whatever reason. I guess you could actually really apply those simple and common and those rules that I just know also onto those things. But for whatever reason, it just does not work for me in this way. But still, anyway, let's actually just make it a bit bigger. No, don't want to do this, but I want to do that. Whether it is a good decision or not, I don't really care. But today we're going to talk about hierarchy on one hand, / it is more or less also unity and groups, because, and I'm going to show you a very quick example here. This is probably the wrong account to search for one of these examples that I actually want to have. But now let's pick actually another account. Let's see what the suggestions there are. Design Boom, Deason. I don't know what Deason is. I'm hoping for something good. Well, let's actually just talk about the logo there. Deason. So you're having a DE and then below you have C for all the podcast listeners. But important to point out that underneath the E from DE, you have the Z. So the Z is not aligned with the first letter, but is aligned with the second letter. So the thing is, I guess it is called unity. I'm actually not quite sure. It is another principle. This is one of these main principles that you have in design quite. But just because they're so close to each another, you think that it is a group, you think that it is a unit. They have to be a part of each and another. They have to be combined. Just because they're so tightly, they don't even stick to each other, You don't really see that there is a connection, but just because things are pretty close to each and another, we think that there is a connection. Very important to notice, by the way, and very important to know, because if you want to show visually that some things are in one group, that they just are somehow connected. On one hand, of course, you can connect them by just, drawing a line or using some other elements. But most often, it is also a really good idea to just stick them relatively close together. They do not have to connect and whatnot, but then we assume that this is a group. Of course, on the other hand, something that I've seen before and something that I've done before is just, for example, if you use this logo and you just put this DE up in this corner, you still know that this is the logo because it's the same font, it's the same size, it looks exactly the same. So there must be a relation. You know, there must be a relation between those two things. One part, unity and groups and knowing that things are one, and at least at my point of view, you can use this technique with hierarchy as well. And well, I would more or less describe it as some sort of center point, or the main part of whatever it is all about, of the design of the house and whatever. So maybe let's actually Roy Cranston. By the way, Roy Cranston with a C, so R-O-Y C-R-A-N-S-T-O-N. Amazing designer. Also relatively known, popular, and successful. I mean, he's working for Nike apparently, and you know, he's been working with Converse, I guess, as well. And his design style is just really great. You know, it is something that I tremendously appreciate, because on one hand, you're having a lot of chaos, and on the other hand, you just totally see that there is structure, that there is a grid, and that there is just, it feels good and it feels correct, which might be as well something that you can see in life if you want to see it. So the center point, hierarchy, and the main part of a design, I think one can really easily illustrate it in his pieces of art. For example, here, the majority of the elements, to want to point out, it's the majority of the elements are somewhat in the top left quadrant. This is very important to know. They're also all just, you know, very close together. Could I actually zoom in a little bit? Yeah, there we fucking go. The future is here. Well, it's a bit disturbing there, but we know that most of it is in the left upper quadrant. They're also, actually indeed, they are connected with lines and whatnot, but they're very close together. So we think that, you know, this is some sort of unity, you know, this is some sort of a group. On the other hand, that's a bit of a pity here. There is also another element. What I want to point out is, this is the center of the design. And this is very important to notice, to know, and also to do, because if it would be all over the place, it would just be too much chaos, and it would not feel right, and it would also not look right. So at least at my point of view, it really makes sense to have one center in your design. Also, I guess when it comes to architecture, having one center and building things around that center, you know, whether it is in the middle, whether it is in just a corner, and whatever it might be. But this also creates hierarchy. You know, this is the most important point and part here. You know, this is where everything stems from. Maybe, yeah, probably this area here. Maybe we can actually also see it in another one of his. Yeah, there we can also see it. Barely any element is not just on, you know, this kind of axis, like somewhat in the middle. Everything stems from this middle, you know, and goes away. Nothing is there and nothing is there as well. If there and there would be really big elements, it wouldn't work, you know. Of course, it can work, but if this element is bigger than this one, they would just be competing with each other and it wouldn't feel great. Maybe we can actually feel a negative example, you know, but here as well, this is a unit. We know that this is a unit, and we know that the logo is not part of this unit just because the logo is a bit too further away or far away from this big chunk of things. And there, once again, we see everything stems from the middle, you know. It is compact, yet not boring and whatnot. This just needs to be like that. If there would be in the upper right corner or just lower right corner or upper left corner, if there would be something really big, it would just really be disturbing. And as funny as it is, can I actually show you this? No, I cannot read, I guess. No. But maybe I'm gonna show it to you in some other way. And there, I mean, this is pretty, well, you know, where's the center? Guess where? Yeah, and this is the center, and I think might actually also be, or would have been a bit better if this font was smaller, and therefore also the the lower parts there as well. But let's see. And as you might notice, and as I maybe have also pointed out, a lot of those things just have to work together. Of course, if you're having a hierarchy, you're also going to have contrast. Things are not going to be as big or are going to be the same size. There's going to be different lengths and whatnot, just to create this hierarchy. On the other hand, also to create this relationship, this unity. Of course, you could use very big elements and just crush them together, and yeah, there we go. We have a unity, you have a group, but you are probably going to notice and see that it is not as interesting as it could be. Therefore, having maybe a big circle in the middle, or just upper right corner, let's just do it like that, and then having small ones relatively close to it so that you understand that this is one part, would work probably a bit better. Of course, really depends on the overall design. Here we're having a really interesting element. But still, we also notice that the majority of things are on the right, which just creates a balance, and you're balancing it out with nothing having or just nothing being on the left side. And this is interesting enough. There's enough elements to just let it feel good and let it kind of feel like it works. Still, might have also been pretty good if this lower part, which is actually pretty big for, and actually also this is pretty big, maybe kind of rotating it would have been better and kind of sticking them up a bit. But I don't know. By the way, I am definitely not the best designer. I do know my craft. This is just something that I have to admit for myself and have to give myself this point. But still, I'm just nowhere near the best. Critiquing other one's work is easier because after doing work, you can see what you've done, you can see the mistakes and whatnot. And it is just, making it fairly easy for myself to say, okay, this is something that I like and this is something that I do not like or dislike or whatnot. Of course, it is very subjective. Design in and of itself is very subjective, besides some technical aspects, okay? A logo just has to be a certain way. Most often, or it has to kind of have some checkpoints, or just checks, you know what I mean, so that it works, because it has to be printed, it has to just work in all different sizes, and so on and so forth. So there are certain things that just needs to just be the case, period. But besides those very, very, very few points, it is highly subjective. Though I do want to point out, and I do also want to say that a lot of things just work and a lot of things just do not work. The beauty is, or the skill is, knowing why they work and knowing why they do not work. So therefore also me just going through other people's designs and talking about them and trying to see why it works really helps me a lot, and really probably also helps you a lot, because you're going to see what works and you're going to see what doesn't fucking work, which is always great. So there we go. We're having a balance, we're having contrast, we're having hierarchy, but we're also having this unity. And there as well, you can clearly see that the center is there in this point, and everything stems from that. This element isn't too big. If this would be smaller, this would actually be disturbing, I guess. I would assume. I would just have to try it out. But it would just be off balance. This could actually also maybe be a bit smaller, but maybe then the space would be too big so that you're going to look at the space and not at the center that you should actually be looking at. So this is also something to consider, using space to support your design and support the elements that you have, and just not letting this empty space or negative space be a factor of disturbance to the whole piece. But in general, I really do like his work. It really is amazing. And I especially also like the analogous style that he's using, having textures and so on and so forth. It just really is a great thing. I enjoy that a lot. I really do. But of course, I guess he did it like, having a poster a day or something. And inevitably, you're going to create some things that you really dislike. Let's just actually have a look at my profile very quickly. I'm also just basically doing it every single day. I thought about doing it twice again because I enjoy the process. I enjoy the process of, designing something, playing around with things, just, going crazy about it. But it is difficult sometimes. It really kind of is. Back in the days, I've had fucking 10 posts a day. By the way, I do also want to talk about marketing and doing those things, because this is something that I enjoy as well. Having a great marketing strategy and seeing a great marketing strategy, this is fucking amazing. And this being supported by design, that is great, by the visual aspect of it, that is amazing. It's a blessing for me. But this one, what I like about it and what I dislike about it. The overall effect is like, okay, it is some sort of VHS style type of thing, I guess. I do not even know. But what I kind of dislike are those big chunks up there. There we have kind of the center, this is where things stem from. So would have actually also been better to have the red starting here as well and just making those smaller. And maybe also in that area. So that, this is maybe quite white, maybe it's also red, but also with this area. But as it is right now, at least at my point of view, it is way too distributed, You're having relatively same-sized elements in different areas. And it is strange, there is still a hierarchy. You have small elements, bigger elements, and whatnot, but still, at least at my point of view, it does not work just because of the reason that I have used too big elements in spaces or places where I should not have used them. Yeah, I think this one is actually a pretty good one. I could have also put something here and or maybe there and whatnot to just, have something there. Kind of feels empty, but I don't know, like once again, I could have actually put this one also on the left side. So I'm having the same sized elements on the left side, but also on the right side. Of course, you could say this is some sort of a balance, but actually would have been great if this right bottom element would also be on the left side, left bottom, and the middle area would kind of be over it, kind of creating a bit more depth once as well. This one I really like, but the question is why? Why do I like it? On one hand, I'm having a decent amount of elements and decent amount of excitement. Also a bit of depth, just using those areas where there's nothing. Can I actually see everything? Yeah. Can you also see my, yeah, wonderfully, yeah, obviously. On the other hand, I could also could have put everything into one bit of tinier space there. Of course, this line element, it is fine to just be all over the place. It is just fine to be all over the whole picture in the background. But I guess it would have once again been pretty nice to have a real center. At this point in time, I do not necessarily have a big center. This somewhat is more or less a center, but therefore the S should have maybe been a bit smaller to let this really be big. I think overall it can also be boiled down to trying out different sizes of elements and trying to see how they work in terms of hierarchy and in terms of leading the viewer's eyes. At this point, I don't know where to start. I really don't know where. And I think this is quite an issue. Let's actually see the next one. Yes, this is one that I actually also like, not necessarily the effect that I've used there, but there we really have a center. And this is also, I think, at least in my point of view, why it quite works. I should have used this fonts on the very bottom. This would have been ideal, I guess. because now once again we're having actually a really big element somewhere where it shouldn't be, somewhere where there's no other big element. So in the end they're competing. In the end it just feels like not good enough, not as good as it could be. I think this is quite nice. You're having big elements in the very middle, and that is it. There's nothing in a corner, there's nothing on the very bottom. You have some little elements, but they create depth, hierarchy. It's quite good. We could really be discussing colors right now and whatnot, and I think maybe a bit too chaotic, but still, it's fine. This is one that I really enjoy, and that once again we have a real center. Might have actually been okay. No, I think this is actually a pretty neat one. Of course, I had a lot of inspiration. Pinterest, the new platform, it's amazing. Anyway, so coming back to unity and having a center, and therefore probably also having balance, but also contrast, so to speak. Life. We are living life. We all are living life. We all are just in life. We are part of life. Let me actually, by the way, check out very quickly whether everything works with the stream after like 21 minutes. It would be actually quite a bummer if it wasn't the case. And how are we doing? Apparently it kind of works. Yes, it does work. Wonderful. Wonderful, I say. Anyway, life. Having a center in life, having a main point in life is, I guess, gonna be inevitable. You just have a set amount of hours for your day and also in your life. You are probably just gonna spend more time on certain things than on other things, and this is just gonna be your center or that center in your life. Of course, this might lead you to not being good at some other things, maybe not being able to do some other things, maybe that you maybe as well would also like to do. But I guess it just really makes sense, to focus on some things. I really am not a big fan at all, and have never been, of focusing on one particular thing. Just doing one thing at a time. It is something that just does not work for me, at least at my point of view. Maybe it's just also my fear of something. Maybe I just do not want to do it, even if it would work. But this is just another discussion right now. By the way, just very quickly, is there a marketing hub or something? Marketing. There is actually one, but I assume that it is actually quite bad. And yes, it is. Anyway, having a center in life, having unities in life, I guess is important to have. And just thinking also about like social situations. I don't know, like, of course, if a group of people, if they're standing pretty close together, well, they are probably going to be a group, they probably know each other, they probably do things that they do. So maybe if you also want to be part of a certain group, being just far away from them may not be the best thing to do, may not be the smartest thing to do. As Seth Godin actually said, and says quite often, people like us do things like this. It's actually pretty funny that I remember that right now, because I've kind of lost it. I've kind of forgotten about that. But I think it is a really amazing quote and says quite a lot. People like me, maybe people that do design work, people that are artists, they do things that I do. They're using social media for inspiration. Well, I would actually really argue that most of people are doing so. Most of the people that are artists, designers, musicians as well, so just overall artists, they use social media, Pinterest and other websites for inspiration. We do that, people like us do things like this. Anyway, so maybe just a little bit of a side note. I don't know how I've come to that thought, but it is, by the way, something that I tend to do. I tend to just be a bit bit further away from other people because of whatever reason. I don't fucking know. Unless they are really good friends of mine, then, you know, I'm just really close to them most often. Maybe this also says something about somebody and this person's relationship to you and or with you, or whatnot. I don't know. Another point of having or just using unity slash using contrast, balance. Of course, once again, you know, in design, all of these very basic principles, they are inevitably going to work with each and another. You know, they just influence each and another. This is going to be the case, period. It's probably also going to be the case in life as well. Of course, if you have a center in life, if you have a hierarchy in life of just using most of your time for a certain thing, this is inevitably going to lead to you not having enough time or just some time for something else that may just also not be very important to you. But this is also going to create contrast. You know, this is also going to create excitement. This might also be creating the complete opposite of excitement, like just being bored because you're spending so much time on this one thing and have been for too long of a time. So maybe actually pretty useful and pretty smart to shift things then, or maybe experimenting with this balance of center and off center. Okay, this is the center of my life and this is the off center of my life. Maybe I'm also going to have to a little tiny bit divide my time. Maybe I need to realize and I need to think about ways in which I can actually spend more time on cleaning up my room, cleaning up the house, working out or something like that. So by shifting my center a little tiny bit into a different area, what could this be influencing? You know, which contrast is this going to create? What disbalance or balance is this going to create? Am I having a disbalance just because my center of attention is in a certain area that doesn't make any sense? You know, for example, you're too centered on pleasure. You know, is this good? Probably not. Should you balance it out in some way? Yeah. How should you do it? Well, probably choosing the best way or choosing one way is figuring out what you can do that is going to give you the most benefits. Period. Something that I've actually always done. Also with the podcast, as I've started, I thought about, well, if it is not going to work out, and the chances are pretty good, and up to this point, it is also not really the case, you know, that it is working fairly well. But what can I do that is going to benefit me anyways? And so I thought, well, let's actually go through book summaries. Let's talk about books. You know, let's just talk about information. Everyone wants to have information. This was my thought. Apparently, it was somehow wrong to some degree, but what can I do? Well, information, yeah, but I'm also going to consume the information. I'm also going to have the information. So up to this point, I have been able to go through really a lot of stuff and use my time in a way that gave me lots of benefits and lots of ROI, return on investment. Pretty good. So think about your center of attention. Think about the hierarchy that you have in life. Think about whether it is sensical, whether it is serving you, whether it is good for other areas in your life. Should you be shifting your center of attention to some degree into another area? What is going to happen if you do so? Probably some things are going to be out of this center. You know, it's just as in design. But of course, I don't know if you're having one big center there and one big center over there. Is it going to work? It can work, I guess. But of course, those things in the middle, those other elements that you have in your life, in your design, they are not going to be big. Because if they are big, everything is big. And when everything is big, there's lack of contrast. And if everything is big, there's lack of balance, work-life balance. If you're trying to just do everything simultaneously and everything to the same degree, well, it's gonna not work out over the long term and over the long run. You're probably gonna be burnt out after a week maybe a month, maybe even you're just pretty resilient. Maybe you're gonna last a year. Is it sustainable? Well, probably not. Is good design sustainable? Yes, it really is. We're still kind of looking at things, also artists, music, whatnot. We still use inspiration or get inspiration from things that are fairly old. But yeah, I guess that I'm gonna end the stream there. I kind of feel like that design talk, and this is design talk number 3, has been a really good idea to start. It's also feeling good, and I'm also seemingly realizing things that I think are great to realize. And up to this point, I've actually been kind of able to notice when something that I talk about is valuable and when it isn't. And fairly often I'm also then seeing it in, especially on TikTok, with the views, but also likes and whatnot. Like, I don't know, feels good to just do something like that. If you've liked it, if you enjoyed it, please give me a like, or subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the stream, whatever it might be. Thank you if you do so. If you don't do so, well, move ahead. Do something great with the time that you have. And we're going to see you the next time, or I'm going to see you the next time. Bye-bye.